The NFL trade deadline is a little over a week away, and here are 5 players I think the Bengals should try to target and trade for before the trade deadline on October 31st. Number 1 is quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater is 33-32 as a starter in the NFL. He has 75 passing touchdowns and 47 interceptions. Bridgewater is currently on a 1-year deal worth $3 million with the Detroit Lions. If Cincinnati were to offer a 4th or 5th round pick, I would highly expect the Lions to accept that offer. When you look at Bridgewater, he's a free agent at the end of the year, so you have the opportunity to possibly retain him depending how much he likes Cincinnati and he knows the system pretty well. I think it's a very low-risk, high-reward situation for Cincinnati. You can give up maybe a 5th round pick and possibly get your backup quarterback of the future. With Joe Burrow, he's much healthier than he was at the beginning of the year, but if he goes down, you don't really have a good backup to help your team possibly win games. Bridgewater is that. He's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Bridgewater to Cincinnati, to me, would be a great move if the Bengals can get it done. Another player I think the Bengals should try to target and trade for is tight end Mike Gesicki. During the 2020 and 2021 seasons, Mike Gesicki had over 700 receiving yards for the Miami Dolphins. Last season, his production took a huge hit. He had half the amount of receptions and half the amount of yards with Miami. They did not use him nearly as much as they should have. This year, he is with the New England Patriots. In 6 games, he has 15 catches. They are not using him nearly as much as people thought they were going to. Gesicki, just like Bridgewater, it's a low-risk, high-reward situation. Gesicki is a billion times better than Irv Smith Jr. The Irv Smith Jr. experiment is not working out at all for Cincinnati. Get Gesicki, a very sneaky, underrated tight end. He's very, very athletic for his size. He is 6'6", extremely athletic. That would be a great move for Cincinnati and would give more weapons for Burrow, and it's an amazing offense. Another player I think Cincinnati should try to target and possibly trade for is quarterback Drew Lock. Drew Lock is not nearly as good as Teddy Bridgewater, but if you're unable to strike a deal with the Lions and get Bridgewater, I don't think getting Lock would be a bad idea. I still think Lock, even though he's inconsistent, is still much better than Jake Browning. Lock is 8-13 as a starter in the NFL. He has 25 passing touchdowns and 20 interceptions. Lock's contract ends at the end of the season, just like Bridgewater and Gesicki, and it's one of those another low-risk, high-reward situations. Let's say Locke comes in, learns the system pretty well. Even though he doesn't play, he might like Cincinnati, and his staff might be willing to bring him back in the offseason. You could possibly have a backup quarterback for Burrow. You could have the insurance policy. I would much rather have Drew Lock as our backup quarterback next year if Browning were unable to get a better quarterback. But Locke is somebody to possibly keep an eye on if the Bengals maybe try to get a backup quarterback before the trade deadline. One under-the-radar player I think Bengal fans should maybe at least entertain the idea about possibly getting is Falcons running back Cordarrelle Patterson. Patterson is a free agent at the end of the season, and when you look at the Atlanta Falcons backfield, they have Tyler Algier, and they just drafted Robinson in the first round this past draft. Patterson really has no place in this Atlanta offense. They are not using him at all. He was very good just a couple years ago. He's very versatile. You can line him up at running back. You can line him up at wide receiver. He can catch out of the backfield. He can get you some decent amount of rushing yards as well. And when you look at Joe Mixon has not been playing nearly as good as anybody thought he would this year. He's had a very disappointing season. But let's say Mixon goes down, we are absolutely screwed at running back. Rookie running back Chase Brown has less than 10 touches this season, and you have to have an experienced running back in case Mixon were to go down. You have to have that insurance policy. Hopefully Mixon doesn't get hurt, but if he does, we have no experience whatsoever in this running back group. Cordarrelle Patterson, I don't expect it to happen, but I don't think that would be a bad idea for Cincinnati. Maybe go after Patterson, maybe give up a 4th or 5th round pick. One final player I think the Bengals should try to trade and get is Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts. This is by far the least likely player to the Bengals to get of the players I mentioned. All the other players I've mentioned have expiring contracts this upcoming offseason. Kyle Pitts has a 5th-year option on the table. That's something to consider if the Bengals would end up trying to trade for Pitts. Pitts was a rookie in 2021, drafted by the Falcons, 4th overall. He's not been nearly as good as people thought he would be. The Falcons have not used him like they should be doing. In 33 games, he has just 118 receptions out of less than 4 receptions a game. He's averaging less than 50 receiving yards a game. He only has 4 receiving touchdowns in 33 games. So basically a 2 years worth of playing, he only has 4 receiving touchdowns. The Falcons are one of those teams who are not completely in a rebuilding stage, but they are not contenders whatsoever. You probably have to give up a 2nd round pick for Kyle Pitts. If I'm Cincinnati, I'm doing that trade pretty confidently. It would give more weapons for Burrow. You would have Pitts, Higgins, Chase, Mixon, Boyd, so many explosive weapons on this Bengals offense. And let's say, with the contract situation with Higgins, if we don't retain him in the offseason, we can give Kyle Pitts the fifth-year option. So it's in a way kind of a replacement for Higgins. I know it's a different position. We would at least have a nice weapon if we ended up losing Higgins. But Kyle Pitts would be great in Cincinnati. It's very unlikely to happen. But those are some players I think the Bengals should try to trade and get before the NFL trade deadline on October 31st. Comment your thoughts in this video and comment who you want the Bengals to try to trade and get before the trade deadline. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time on the Sports Studio Hines Show.